Excuse me. All right, Matthias, is this a better camera now?
Yeah. Already some improvement. And a fancy new hairstyle. Spiky hair.
Oh, my hair is just extremely long. Yeah, it's extremely long.
It's the lockdown style, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Good, good, good. Now, where are your plants, guys?
Fair point. Fair point.
You left them in the office, huh? Yeah.
I could add a virtual background and make a very
Forest
nice
background, huh?
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't even know where to do that. No.
You have to go into your Zoom settings. It's on the Zoom desktop app. That's where you can do it. Or you can have a virtual camera, OBS, or I have XSplit, which works quite nicely. But usually people say the natural background is the best.
Yeah.
Sometimes with a virtual background, you get a little bit of, you know, the sight, not always sharp. Mm. So for everybody's information who is already coming into the room, we'll start in about 2 or 3 minutes, most likely just in time. Great to see people coming in already from all over the world. So Manuel, you're calling in from Zurich or from where?
Yes, exactly.
Zurich.
Zurich, Switzerland.
Good, good. Thank you, Laurent, for your message. Laurent is from Geneva, Switzerland. That's great. Feel free to comment where you are from in the chat box. We welcome everyone from all over the world. Would be nice to see whether we've got Europe, we've got Southeast Asia. Do we have any from North America, South America, or Africa? I saw we had people from South America as well, but they might be still lying in bed. Sometimes people register, but then later on realize, oh, it's in the middle of the night. Has happened with me as well.
There are 2 from the US, Anthony and Thomas.
Great. And we have Manila twice, Malen, and someone from JLL. Vancouver, Canada. Great. Wow, we definitely have a global coverage tonight. Tonight here in the Philippines already. And we have Paul from France. Très bien. La France est si belle aussi. Very good. My broken French. Yes. Oh, we have Luciano from Brazil, 10 a.m. That's quite okay. I thought it was still nighttime over there. That shows my lack of intuitive overview over all the time zones. Muito bem, 10 a.m. It's not too bad. So we really have a pretty much of a global coverage. I think the only continent that we haven't got is Australia. We haven't got anyone from Africa yet. Anyone from Africa that's joined us? Most likely not. I'll give it one more minute and then we'll officially start. Have we got anyone from Malaysia that's joined us? I had 1 or 2 Malaysians contact me last minute for the registration link. Oh, UAE, Jamil. Wonderful. Nice to have the United Arab Emirates present as well. Very good. Excellent. Great, great. Oh, Tom is on the call too from the US. Wonderful. Hi, Tom. Nice to see you. And Reed Harvey from the Niagara Falls. Very good. Yeah, my friend Datuk Francis Wong from Malaysia is on board as well. And we have Arup Adawar from Nagpur in India. Great. We've got the whole world with us. I think it's we're good to go. We are truly international. It's really a pleasure for me to welcome all of you tonight, today, this morning, from wherever you are, to our webinar on improving air quality naturally and the ROI that we can get from it. Our 2 esteemed speakers. First off will be Manuel Winter, the CEO of Oxygen at Work, all the way from Zurich, Switzerland. And then our second speaker will be Dustin Onghanseng, the co-founder and CEO of uHoo. uHoo is the host of this webinar. So my thanks goes to both of you for actually volunteering your time to give us insightful presentations tonight. And my name is Matthias Gelber. I'm the host tonight. I will facilitate later on our discussion. So we are looking forward for Manuel to kick off tonight's topic with his presentation, bringing in case studies from Switzerland in particular about the use of plants in indoor environments and how that can help to regulate indoor air quality, humidity, and other aspects. So Manuel, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Matthias. Thank you, Dustin, for having me this afternoon, this evening, this morning, wherever you are. It's great to see so many people interested in that topic. So hello, everybody. I'm just gonna share my screen very briefly. Can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect. So then I will kick off and give you a brief overview about improving indoor air in a natural way, as the topic is stated of this webinar. So let's dive right into it. And when we talk about indoor environments, it's important first to really understand the context that we are in, because in the end, every building is part of a larger ecosystem of an urban environment that has quite a big impact, because we have different pollution sources from the street, from cars, trains, etc. We have noise coming from outdoors. Obviously, we have also aspects that have a positive impact, like the trees, and it's really important to understand this, because it has a huge impact on every built environment. It's every building is not like a standalone ecosystem. It's always part of a larger ecosystem, and I'm gonna comment on that later. Why it's so important to really understand the context. So now let's zoom into the indoor environment, and as we see here on this slide already, is the impact from the outdoor. So obviously, depending on building systems that you might have installed, you either get more or less of pollutants from the outdoor into the building, but you obviously also get positive things like oxygen or humidity from outdoors, as well as noise and other things. And one good example to illustrate why the outdoor actually has a big impact on the indoor is would be rain, as it's illustrated on this slide. So on a rainy day, you would humidity outdoor goes up, which has a big impact on the indoor humidity level as well. Usually, generally, humidity levels would rise on these days as well, unless you have some kind of dehumidifier installed. But then again, it has an impact because the dehumidifying system needs to work more in order to keep the indoor environment in balance. So, but now enough about the outdoor ecosystem. Now let's have a look at the indoor ecosystem, and which is complex enough in itself. So, first of all, we have human beings, which have a huge impact as the main source, for example, of CO2. We see strong CO2 increase whenever there are more and more people inside of a certain room, but at the same time they also emit noise. So it's a very important aspect to take into account and to really understand when we talk about indoor ecosystems. But then there are other aspects as well, like we have furniture, we have paint, we have carpets, computers, printers, and they all have their own emissions of VOCs, of fine dust, of ozone, and noise as well. We all know it. We know our colleagues from the office when they're too noisy and we can't concentrate. We know the printers that might be too noisy, or computers, the older ones. So we all have kind of a feeling of what happens in such an indoor environment. But then we also have the plants, and which is what I want to focus now a little bit more in detail on, because this is usually an overlooked topic, but it has, as much as the human beings and computers, etc., the plants, the indoor vegetation has a big impact on the indoor environment as well. But why is it actually important? So let's make one step back, and when we look at this chart from the Architectural Science Review, it puts this topic of indoor greenery very nicely, where we see there's low complexity for implementing such solutions like that with very high effectiveness. So it's a rather efficient solution, and it should really not be overlooked when talking about the indoor environment. Now, this is a brief overview of what's possible. We see pollutants that can be absorbed by plants, but also pay attention to the humidity on the at the center that gets released by the plants. But what I actually want to show you is I want to zoom into the plant and actually explain you how this whole process works. So what we see here is a so-called stomata, which is like the pores on our skin. So what happens is when they open up, they take up CO2 and other pollutants, which are nutrition for the plant, so they need them to grow. And as a side process, what happens is that humidity and oxygen gets released. So this is really a win-win situation, because for us human beings, the CO2 and VOCs are actually harmful substances, while for the plants they are their nutrition, and in that process the plant benefits, but we benefit as well because we get more humidity and oxygen into the air. If we go even one level further, we see also how these pollutants get degraded, etc. But let's not go too much into biological details here. So this here is again a summary that shows the complexity of the whole indoor environment. We see, first of all, we see the outdoor that plays a role. For everything that's coming inside indoors from the outside world. We see the human beings, all the appliances, and we see the plants. But the question is, why should we even care? Why should we actually look at indoor air quality, at indoor environment, and take all these things into account? Obviously it's a quite complex topic, and the answer to this is basically it's always about cost versus health. While in an unbalanced indoor environment, usually the costs overweigh the health aspect, and companies, employers, real estate owners pay too much for too little benefit on the health and well-being side. So what we see here is that productivity and sick leave have quite a high impact on the cost. Whenever you get human beings involved, the costs skyrocket compared to energy costs, for example. But obviously, energy costs from HVAC operations like ventilation, heating systems, etc., have a big impact as well. Also on that cost side would be the ecological cost with energy consumption, CO2 emissions. And on the other side, we have the health, well-being of the people, productivity of the people, and reduced sick leave. And as I mentioned, this leads to very high costs, and usually on the human being aspect, the costs are much higher compared to the energy cost. And the goal is really, when looking at this topic, is to balance out this scale in order to minimize the cost and optimize health and well-being for the occupants of a building. And only like this you can really get the most out of your system. And this is to circle back again to what I mentioned in the very beginning, is why it's so important to understand the context where we are in. So on your left side, you see an example that could be, for example, in Singapore, where you get generally warm and humid air from the outdoors. And on the right side, this is a typical situation here in Switzerland. Today it's even snowing, so very cold day. Generally you get much drier air from the outdoors, so it's very different, and it obviously has a very different impact on the indoor environment. And only when we really understand this, we can also start optimizing it. Now, I talked a lot about humidity. Let's have a closer look why this particular topic is so important. Recent scientific evidence shows that the survivability of bacteria, viruses, etc., as can be seen here in this chart, gets minimized if we achieve a range of relative humidity between 40 and 60%. So this shows already, if we are in a setting somewhere in Southeast Asia, we need to make sure that we bring down humidity to these acceptable levels, while here in Switzerland, we need to make sure that we actually reach levels of at least 40% in order to reach or achieve these goals. And this is kind of to summarize it a little bit. So first of all, we have the outdoor, which is important to understand, for example, through weather data. We need to understand the indoor environment by using devices like the uHoo to really understand the indoor air quality. We need to understand the impact of the plant, really need to be able to quantify the impact of the human beings, understand the building systems, and only by bringing all of this together, it's actually possible to find the right health cost balance. And now let's go over to the numbers that we promised as well in terms of ROI. So again, talking about humidity, now I'm just going to show some results from projects that we did with our clients. So it's a real life project. What we see here is how the plants helped to increase humidity in a certain setting, and we see there is quite a significant achievement here. So plants can really be natural humidifiers and leverage it, and it's important that this is also reflected in the building systems and building automation. But leveraging plants not only has a positive impact on humidity and pollutants, but also on well-being of the people. This we see here results from surveys that we always do with our clients, and you see that stress levels go down, productivity goes up, the general perceived ambience at the workplace goes up. So this is a very important aspect to take into account as well. And now, how does this play a role in terms of cost? So when we look at these numbers, these are numbers from the Federal Statistical Office here in Switzerland and the health insurance. What we see is when we compare the cost of sick leave absences of people to the investment cost of using plants, of using indoor air quality sensors and these optimization solutions, you really only need your colleagues or your employees to reduce their sick leave by 1 hour throughout the whole year in order to break even with an investment like that. So that's a reduction of 1.5% of your absences. And the best case, this is from a scientific study that shows you could actually bring it down by 60%, which is a very high number. But it shows the upside potential that you actually have with such investments. I also talked about productivity, and this is a bit harder to. It's not such a tangible topic. It's hard to measure. So we think about productivity a little bit in a different way. So imagine you have one employee, which costs here in Switzerland, you would have as an average cost per employee, let's say 100,000. Now, if you imagine that this one employee increases the productivity by 100%, so gets double the output, you basically save 100,000 because you don't need to employ another person for the same salary again. So if we think about productivity in that way, in order to put the numbers into perspective, we see that in order to break even again with such investments, you only need a productivity increase of 0.2%. So it's basically nothing. And then again, you have the scientific indication of up to 15% that could be achieved, which again shows the upside potential. I also talked about sustainability and energy efficiency, and I want to highlight here two of the projects, two of our projects where we really looked at these different aspects of the indoor environment, outdoor environment, utilization of different spaces, and you see how very high energy savings were achieved in these projects. Especially if you look at the 84% on the right side, this is a very high number, and it's definitely not representative for all buildings out there. But in this particular project, we even uncovered rooms that didn't need any ventilation at all anymore due to the utilization that we saw in that room, due to the room characteristics with very high ceilings, open windows, the plants that were there. So that's why this number is so high. So that's that's basically my input. Maybe one sentence just to about us, what we do as Oxygen at Work. We are a Swiss-based prop tech startup. We specialize exactly in that area, leveraging plants to optimize indoor environment. So it's from the design phase, implementation of the greenery, but then also the monitoring of the indoor environment, providing the analytics, and then helping to optimize the indoor environment from a holistic point of view by looking at the outdoor, the indoor utilization, the impact of the plants, of human beings, of appliances, etc. And this just yeah, a brief overview of some of the companies we work with. Generally, it's large corporates with large office spaces that put a lot of emphasis on the health and well-being of their people, as well as sustainability, which becomes more and more important as well. Yeah, currently we have projects all around Europe. So this is it. This was my input. I'm looking forward to the discussion after Dustin's presentation.
Actually, there are a couple of questions already that are directly linked to your presentation. So let me take at least one or two of them, Manuel, and then we'll do a poll, and then we'll let Dustin do his part. Two people, both Graham and John, were asking the 60% sick leave reduction study. Where is that data coming from? Can you actually share with us the link if you have it available in the chat box, if possible, or maybe we can retrospectively after the event send it to people?
So if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, I think the study is from Norway. I don't have the link now at hand, but I can definitely provide it after the webinar.
Yeah. And Graham was as well asking about the 40 to 60% humidity. What is that based on in terms of study? And the question that came up for me, I just checked my uHoo virus index. Here in this room I'm sitting, I have a humidity of 72.8%, which is not good. It's too high. You see plants behind me. There are plants here in front of me. If plants breathe out humidity, does that mean they are currently worsening my virus risk index because they are pushing the humidity up too high? For here in Asia, we have high humidity. You guys in Europe need extra humidity.
All right, so there are two questions here. Let's first talk about the range of 40 to 60%. So this is based on different scientific research that basically analyzed the survivability of viruses and bacteria. So there are two main processes going on when we in terms of the impact of humidity. One is if you have a certain humidity, and also temperature plays a big role, but the viruses and the bacteria get deactivated faster. They have a lower survivability. They survive a short amount of time in that particular environment. But then the second process, which is very important for indoor environments as well, as if you have higher humidity, the viruses and bacteria, they absorb the humidity, they become heavier and they fall to the ground much faster. So they become there is a lower risk of getting infected for the occupants of the building, because the viruses float in the air for a shorter amount of time. So that's hopefully to answer the first question. In terms of the second question, I would in terms of the virus index, I would refer to Dustin, who can better explain the impact of the humidity on their virus index. But what I can tell is that the transpiration rate of plants goes down with increasing relative humidity. So if you have 10%, humidity, relative humidity in the air, much more humidity gets released by the plants rather than when you have an 80 or 90%. It's like the saturation. There's like a saturation that takes place. So probably now my guess would be that in your particular situation, it's probably the outdoor environment that plays a much bigger role in that sense than the plants that you have in your room right now.
That makes sense. Thanks, Manuel. And I mean, the good news is the Dustin's uHoo virus index came exactly to the same conclusion as you. The optimum sweet spot there is 40 to 60. That's why my rating is not optimum at the moment here in my home, because I have 72 at the moment. But there's one more question that came in from Eric. I think it relates to your presentation as well. He is asking, what is that oxygen at work machine with an app in the end? I think that's related to one of your slides where you show that kind of combination of different tools and apps to manage a building. Maybe you can go back to that.
This one? I
think so.
I'm not sure what oxygen at work machine would be, because this is not a term I generally use. So it's a little bit hard for me to answer the question. If we can get a better understanding.
Second last slide, Manuel, says Eric.
Last slide.
Second last slide.
Would be somewhere around here, but there are no, I don't know. So this is the very last slide. This would be the second
I think
last slide.
Must be. That looks like a uHoo device. Maybe that was the machine.
This is a uHoo device. Yes.
That's a uHoo device. the mysterious machine. Let me show my machine here. I plugged it out just now. It looks the same. So yeah. We spotted.
So then I would refer to Dustin for everything that's in regards to the air quality monitor and the virus index there.
So let's get a good idea what's actually the reality on the ground. Let's do a quick poll, guys. Do you have plants in your workplace? Yes or no? If you're working from home, yes, we have plants, or no, we don't have plants. Please give us an idea of where we are at, just to get the pulse of the audience, particularly after we have heard about the benefits of the plants. It will be good to do a reality check for us. Where are we? We've got 56% of people that have answered. Maybe a couple more of you can press the button, and then I will end the poll and share with you all the results. Now we've got 60%. Yeah, I think we will end the poll now and see what comes out. Okay, we'll share the results. Interesting. It is very much the case that a lot of people work at home and they have plants at home, but in the office, it's kind of 50-50. In the home, the majority of people, twice as much, have plants than not have plants. That's an interesting observation as well, that we actually have more plants present in a home work environment. I think because people have control over it, they can maintain it, whereas maybe in the office, people are reluctant because they're always worried about the maintenance of the plants. How do you manage that, Manuel, for your clients?
Yeah, we noticed that as well, this reluctance, and it's definitely an issue for the corporates, and that's why we also started to offer that to our clients, to not only consult and do the monitoring, but also provide the plans and provide the maintenance, and basically give to the clients peace of mind. So we take care of everything from design phase to the implementation, maintenance, and then provide the analytics and monitoring to it it's definitely a big topic for corporates.
So all inclusive, like my wife, all inclusive. I don't have to worry about the plants behind me. She takes care of them. So in your case, you guys have the package. Great
Exactly.
to know. Excellent. Now we have another poll after Dustin's presentation. I would like to invite Dustin now to give his talk, and that follows on nicely from Manuel's talk. It will as well focus on indoor air, how we can manage it, and as well a little bit more with the virus index aspects. So Dustin, over to you. We're looking forward to your presentation all the way from Metro Manila, right?
Yep, that's right. All right. Thank you, Matthias. Thank you, Manuel. And good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Let me share my screen. All right. Yeah, so my presentation will go through first some slides on what we do as a company, and after that we'll jump right into the case studies and the ROI that was achieved by some of the projects that we have. So our company is called uHoo, and what we do is we help you measure your environmental quality so that you know exactly how to improve it. So what you see on the screen is the device. All you have to do is to plug it in for power, connect it to the Wi-Fi network, and you would get all the data on your app or on your dashboard. You would get the data in real time. You would also get the historical data so you can understand the trends and how things have changed over time, depending on the activities that you do in your workplace. And you would also get alerts and tips on what you can do to improve the quality of air. And we can also integrate the solution with your building system or any other software that you have through the APIs. And in order to help in the fight against the coronavirus, we also developed the uHoo Virus Index. What the Virus Index does is it gives you a real-time risk assessment on the coronavirus surviving and being transmittable in the air. So this was explained earlier by Manuel as well on how the virus works in the environment. And we use pretty much the similar idea and concept on developing the coronavirus index or the uHoo Virus Index. So right now we'll jump into the case studies. Let's go through the different types of ROI first that you can achieve. So when we look at working with our clients, there are four general benefits or value that you can achieve with proper monitoring and management of the air. And these come in the form of health and productivity, sustainability certifications. This also involves compliance with certain building codes or standards within your country. And when you improve your air quality and you manage it properly, it can also generate revenue for you, whether it can be existing revenue or new types of revenue streams. And with the data that you have, you can also integrate it with the building system that allows you to optimize the HVAC, which in turn would help you to optimize energy use and also save some energy as well. So the first case study we have would be a bread manufacturing company here in Asia, particularly in the Philippines. So what issues they were facing were the workers were getting sick inside the factory. So they wanted to make sure that they can create a healthier environment for them. And they needed to make sure that they comply with government standards because there are specific standards that are applicable to health and safety when it comes to people working in a factory. So what happened there was the uHoo devices, and they realized that they had different problems in different areas of the factory. And there were problems that they never knew existed, but after utilizing uHoo, they realized that they had new problems. So they were able to discover new problems by looking at the data. So what happened was in the production area where people need the bread, where there's a lot of flour, that's where a lot of the people were getting sick. So the reason was there was too much flour in the air, so people were inhaling it. And we can see that from the data as well, from the dust particles or the PM 2.5 readings. So the kind of remedy that they did was they installed standalone air purifiers that uHoo can control. So it was automated. When the dust levels would go up, the workers would get alerts, and the air purifiers would also switch on automatically. Once the dust levels or the floor has been cleaned up, it would automatically be switched off by uHoo. So they automated that part and they were able to improve the, the air quality within that area. And as a result, they were able to reduce the sick leave of people in there. So they were able to improve worker health and they were able to reduce sick leave. And another aspect that they found out was that in their packaging area, they realized that VOCs were extremely high, but they never knew why. So it took them quite a while to test, find out, discover what the issue was. And what they realized was that it was the packaging material that they were using that created a lot of the VOCs. And it came from the ink that was printed on them because it's plastic, then you print ink on them, and ink generally has VOCs. And the levels of the VOCs were very high. So what they did was they had to change their supplier. Once they found another supplier that created more sustainable packaging, you can see that the VOC levels immediately dropped. So that helped them to the problem that they never knew existed. And overall, they were able to eventually comply better with the standards. And the ROI that they saw from this project was that health and productivity of people improved, sustainability certifications as well, which means that they were able to comply with standards. And since productivity improved, it also helped generate some form of revenue for them. So these were the three main values that they were able to achieve with uHoo as a solution. So they've been using the product for 2 years now, and they're still continuing to use it until today. The second case study would be with Nomura Research Institute in Japan. So this one we're able to provide the name because they did a press release of the project that they did with us. The issues that they found out was that they were having were people were not comfortable inside the office. They would get headaches every now and then. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to understand what's going on inside the office using sensors. They realized that there were a lot of sensors in the market that did not really meet the standards that they wanted to. And they also wanted to be able to comply with the building code in Japan because the building code there specifically stated certain parameters need to stay within certain levels. So that is important for them because they're a very good branded company. So they needed to make sure that they comply with these regulations as well. And since they have offices all across the country, they wanted to be able to monitor and manage everything from one dashboard. So they needed that kind of system, which we were able to provide. So what they did was they deployed uHoo across all 5 offices in Japan, and they monitor everything from one dashboard. And from there, using the data, they were able to increase the accuracy and precision on facilities management. Since they didn't really have access to the building's HVAC system because they were tenants, they didn't own the building, they needed to take action by themselves. So it really helped their facilities team and with the office environment. They also involved their own employees in terms of improving the air. So one of the things they did was they integrated uHoo with their smart speakers. So when certain levels of parameters went up, the smart speaker would talk, give an announcement, and that would encourage the people inside the office to actually ventilate and take action to improve the air quality. So it wasn't just action that was taken by the facilities team, it also involved everybody in the company. So they were, in a way, they were being responsible for each other in making sure the environment is safe. And another value was the compliance with the building code. And they were also able to identify and solve other new issues just by looking at the data. So the three values and benefits that they achieved were health and productivity, sustainability certifications by complying with the building code, and also revenue as well in terms of better productivity from people through the reduction in. The third case study that we have would be a real estate company in Europe, in Holland in particular. What the issues they were facing was occupant discomfort. So this is they own the building. They rent out the different floors to the different tenants. So the people that were complaining about discomfort, complaints, and illnesses were actually their tenants, not the landlord itself. And they didn't have any data to be able to manage their HVAC properly. And they hired a third-party consultant to assess their building. And the recommendation of that consultant was to spend approximately $150,000 to retrofit the building with a new HVAC system because they suspected it wasn't working properly. But the biggest problem that they really had was it's a full building, but they only had a few months left before the tenants were about to terminate their contracts. None of them wanted to renew because none of them felt comfortable inside the building. They just didn't trust anymore. So they wanted to terminate all their rent contracts. So that was the major problem that they had. So what we told this company was, why don't you just deploy uHoo inside the building, inside your tenant spaces, and let's understand what's going on. With this data, we can take proper action. So what they realized from the data was that the environment was too dry. That's why people were getting a sore throat. They were complaining about feeling sick inside. And when they went into the different seasons, they can see that the humidity would shift in big ranges, and their building was not adopting to it because they didn't have the data to actually adjust the humidity in the building. But with the data that we provided, they were able to start managing the building much more efficiently and properly. So that adjustment in humidity helped in improving what people feel. Another aspect they realized was that CO2 was extremely high. Safe levels are normally at the 800 parts per million mark, but their CO2 levels were at 2,500. So that's more than 3 times the safety limit. So because the building was not didn't run the ventilation system properly, that's why people would feel stuffy. They just don't feel comfortable, especially inside the meeting rooms. So these were major problems that they faced. And another aspect, what happened was when they started adjusting all of these based on the data, 95% of the complaints disappeared within 2 months. And because the complaints disappeared, they didn't see the need to retrofit the building with a new HVAC system. They realized that they can actually manage the HVAC system by themselves because they have the data. So they were able to save that $150,000. And just after 4 months, they were able to get everybody in the building to renew their rent contracts. So instead of becoming an empty building, it's still a fully occupied building. So in terms of the value that they achieved it's all 4 that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the presentation: health and productivity, sustainability certifications, because they utilize the data for recertification of the building for the BREEAM standard. And they also were able to generate revenue because instead of an empty building, they were able to reduce the churn, keep the tenants. So they kept the revenue that they wanted. And using the data, they're also looking at how to optimize the HVAC to reduce energy consumption. So an estimated ROI that they had is 15 times of what they spent on deploying uHoo inside the building. So these are 3 of the case studies that we have. And in terms of where we're at today, we have deployed our product through tens of thousands of customers around the world. So we also cater to corporations, to home consumers, and to government. So that's the end of our presentation. And yeah, our motto is really healthier, one breath at a time.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Dustin, for an excellent overview, fascinating case studies. I think the Filipino bread factory is a real typical example of the problems that a lot of factories are facing. You sometimes go into factories, you can smell the VOC, but nobody really takes it serious until you provide the data. Here is the problem, and this is how we can solve it. And then suddenly you improve workers' health, workers' productivity, you take away future liability, and you do ethically what is the right thing to do. But only once the monitoring happened, that's when the company took action, right? So the awareness, understanding what's going on is triggering the real positive change. Fascinating case study. And then, you know, when you were sharing about the example in Holland, it kind of reminded me that there are strong parallels between where COVID spreads very fast, and that scenario in that building, which had very high levels of CO2, no fresh air coming in, very low humidity. That seems to be a breeding ground for bacteria, viruses, coughs, people get sick, and people don't feel well. I think those case studies, like, for example, in a German abattoir, where there were more than 1,500 infections, the main reason why it spread so fast was they had low temperature, low humidity, and the air was circulating. No fresh air was coming in. So high levels of CO2, and the air was spreading through their internal air exchange system, which was not taking in fresh air from the outside. And the early high numbers of COVID infections were, you know, in the mountains, in Italian mountains, as well, low humidity. So there are very, very interesting parallels there. Where can we get more information about the uHoo virus index?
You'd be able to get more information on our website. It's at getuhoo.com/virus-index.
Okay, maybe Lilette, if you can share that link as well here on the chat group, that would be interesting. We've got some questions for Manuel still. I'll go back to them later. First, there is a comprehensive question for you, Dustin, from anonymous attendee. He's asking about the difference with regards to air visual criteria with regards to your business solution. Are your sensors reset certified, and how about calibration? And then we'll tackle the question from my friend Datuk Francis Wong after that.
Okay, yeah, so I'll go through each question one by one. In terms of our difference, it's really the kind of parameters that we measure. If we look at Air Visual and Kytera, they measure fewer parameters. We measure 9 parameters. And I believe Kytera has a business solution as well. And we do have our own business solution too. So it's also the breadth and the scope of parameters that we measure. In terms of reset certification, no, our current product is not reset certified. Our clients don't really require us to be reset certified. So they still adopt our solution. And in terms of calibration, we do have auto calibration technology. So the sensors are recalibrated every 168 hours of continuous use. So it's the software that does that.
And then the next question from Datuk Francis Wong about the regulatory acceptance for portable indoor air quality monitoring, including for green building certification. What are the requirements there?
I guess the requirements would be different for every country. There is no really international standard that governs this because every country would have their own rules. Let's say if we look at Singapore, they would require specific parameters to be measured. In Malaysia, when you look at the Green Building Index, the parameters that it requires is also different. And sometimes there's a specific like technology that needs to be used for measurement. So it really varies per country.
Okay, but you have certain accreditations, right, for standards that people follow, like the WELL standard internationally, which is quite famous and focused on health and people's wellness, and others. Those are standards where uHoo can be used as a tool, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So we have 2 or 3 questions as well about the choice of plants. We have my friend Mehedi from Bangladesh is asking what trees and plants are best for indoor air quality. Datuk Francis Wong is as well asking criteria for indoor plants selection, how to make it effective and safe, how to choose.
That's a very good question, and it's not that easy to answer because there is no one size fits all solution, unfortunately. Because first of all, you have very different environments, very different contexts. So in an office in Singapore, you wouldn't want to have a plant that emits that has a very high efficiency in humidity emissions. While in Switzerland, this is more of a plant that would be more suitable for an environment here around here. So it's actually a quite complex task to select the right plants. You need to look at the context that you're in. You need to see what you need to define the goals that you want to achieve, increasing humidity, reducing CO2, or other biophilia goals that you could achieve by selecting the plants. But then you also need to take into account the actual building characteristics. What kind of building systems are there in place? Do you have a humidifier or a dehumidifier or not? Do you have ventilation, or do you ventilate by opening windows? All these kind of things. How many desks do you have? A very important aspect are the light levels, how much light, like sunlight, comes in through the windows that helps all the processes of the plants. So so you see there are a lot of variables that you need to take into account, which is what we specialize in on really quantifying this and then coming up with the right design for every office space. But unfortunately, there is no one size fits all solution.
That's why you guys have turned it into a business, right? It's not that straightforward that people just do it by themselves. A lot of people have started planting at home, but many people are saying, oh, I don't have the green finger because my plants die. And I've seen offices that have plants, and then suddenly, you know, a couple of months later, all the plants are dead, or the green walls. That's why they need an expert like you. Our friend from Bangladesh is interested in trees and asking about trees for the indoor, and as well, actually, I remember I was hosting an event with the GSX in the US a couple of weeks ago, and we had this case study from the Pyramid Green Factory in Penang, which is basically like a forest. And the feedback from the employees there was 90% of them said they love working there much more than before in the old factory. So employee retention, I was thinking earlier on, is as well a huge benefit of greening your office or your factory with plants or with trees. People just feel a lot more comfortable. They feel a lot more at home. It's enjoyable to be working in a place that has more of that nature touch. So the question here about trees, is that something that you can tackle, Manuel? Then we will do another poll. Then we have another question from Graham, and we have a comment from Anthony that I will refer to, and then we can do our exit poll. But if you guys have additional questions, keep them coming.
So I mean, your remark was very spot on. This is what we see here as well. I mean, especially now, we saw a very strong uptick in market interest and market demand for, and we got a lot of calls from companies. Not only, I mean, obviously, indoor air quality, health, well-being became now very important topics, and you kind of don't, after this year, you don't need to explain to people the topic of indoor air quality anymore. Everyone knows about it. Not everyone understands it, but everyone knows that it's a big topic. But what we noticed, what we saw is that that not only that became a problem, but also companies, in order to bring the employees back into the office, back from the home office into their own office, and everyone has an interest of having people around for the team spirit, for creative processes, etc. They use this tool of biophilia a lot to create a much better workplace that that actually people freely choose as their workplace of choice, instead of let's say workplace of force, where you get forced to work from. And nowadays you have the choice between working from home or working from the office. And this has been a very important tool to bring back the employees, couple it with indoor air quality monitoring, to actually also provide to the employees the peace of mind and showing them it's actually a safe environment. And that has been a very a road to success for companies to in their re-entry strategy for their workplaces.
All right, great. And in that context, I think that was the reason why we had the higher ratio of people having plants in their home, because we just love it. We like it. We feel better and we have more control over it. Let me launch the next poll here. What measures are being practiced in your workplace to manage and improve air quality? This is multiple choice, just as well to give us an overview over what people are doing. And while we do that, there was one question as well about the issue of the virus index and the virus measurement. For clarification, the uHoo virus index, but Dustin might want to comment more on that, is not measuring the virus presence, but it's measuring air quality parameters that help you to reduce the duration, the help you to deactivate the virus particles faster, because certain indoor conditions actually could lead to a shorter or longer life cycle of the virus. I actually have 2 slides that I can share with you after this poll, just to elaborate a little bit on that. We have half of you have voted. Let me end the polls here and share that with you to just give you a good idea. Proper cleaning and sanitation is the #1 choice, then natural ventilation #2, and only then we are going into indoor air quality monitoring or HVAC system, air filtration, only 28%. So, and 6% are doing nothing. So that's an interesting overview over what's currently going on. Let me try and share with you just very, very quickly to elaborate a little bit on what Dustin actually was talking about. If I can pull up my slides. Yeah. Can you see this one here? This is actually the virus index overview, and you can download that as mentioned earlier. Why, from past studies, there is evidence that if your humidity is 50%, that's the blue line, and this was done during the days of SARS, where it was tested how long can the SARS-CoV virus survive, and it was only about 3 to 4 days at humidity 50%. If it had a humidity of 80%, you can see much longer, more than 10 days. And with the humidity of 20%, the virus loves it. It survives much, much longer than that. So there are some studies like that that have been taken into consideration, coming up with a conclusion. And this was developed by a medical PhD in Holland on behalf of uHoo, came to the conclusion that temperature optimum is 19 to 24 Celsius, humidity 40 to 60, PM 2.5 should be below 15 microgram per cubic meter. Carbon dioxide, that was mentioned earlier on already by Dustin, should be 800 ppm or below, and nitrogen dioxide as well should be below 53. If you have all those parameters met, your virus index rating is optimum, means #1. That means any virus that might be present will be deactivated fast or blown out of the window by the fresh air or the air exchange system, because the low carbon dioxide is a proxy that you have fresh air coming in. Otherwise, in an indoor environment with us humans breathing in the air and breathing in the oxygen, breathing out the CO2, CO2 goes up. Fresh air coming in, CO2 goes down. The opposite of what the plants do, the photosynthesis that Manuel showed us in his presentation. Just to give you guys a bit of additional info, there was one question on that. This is what the uHoo virus index does. It doesn't measure the presence of COVID particles. It just gives you an indication of how you have optimized and how you can optimize your indoor parameters to ensure lowest risk possible. So this is the context. Let's go back to a couple of other questions that we've got here. Our friends from Bangladesh, they've used NASA data and standards about indoor air quality. That's excellent. We have got Anthony. He has shared some information about insulated rocket stoves that are being used in developing countries to improve the indoor air quality. I think this is a very good point. People might want to check that out, because we have a lot of problems in parts of Africa, parts of Southeast Asia, where people are cooking in-house with stoves that are extremely polluting, or they use kerosene. So this is a very, very good contribution. We have a couple of additional questions flooding in here. The first one that we haven't answered yet was from Graham up there. And or here Mehdi commented as well, fruit trees. I love fruit trees, excellent. And they really benefit in terms of better environment, air quality, and as well the fruits when you can pluck them. Graham was asking, do you agree that the efficacy of biophilia, this is trying to bring nature plants into our indoor environment, will depend partly upon the efficiency, and effectiveness of the HVAC system. Manuel, what's your comment on that?
100% agree. It's very important that you basically synchronize your greenery with your HVAC. It's if you here in Switzerland, for example, what we would see is bringing plants that transpire a lot of humidity levels go up. But if you have your ventilation running at full speed, it drags out the whole humidity out of the building again, and you don't really see the real benefit. So only by finding the sweet spot there, obviously you need to make sure that CO2 levels don't rise too much, but it's very important to find this sweet spot, and this is basically the essential or the key message, that you need to look at the outdoor, understand the outdoor, understand the indoor, understand the plant, understand the ventilation, to find this sweet spot.
Yeah. We have 3 more questions and comments. We will address them very quickly, and then we do our exit poll before people leave, because we have the hour already. Or let me do the exit poll first, and then we tackle the other questions after that. The exit poll is all about, us getting a good idea who wants any follow-up measure. Whom would you like to get in touch with after this webinar? Would you like to talk with Manuel, Oxygen at Work? Would you like to talk with Dustin? Or would you like to connect with Matthias? Oh, no, don't. Please don't connect with me. Just kidding. Just kidding. If you click that button, I will send you an email. I'll make sure. So we'll let people answer that and see who wants to connect with us. We will get that information through the exit poll. Let's see who is the most popular of the 3 of us. Just kidding, not a popularity. Oh, Mehdi would like to talk with us all. That's good. Good to hear. All right, let me see here the polling and share the results. Wow, Manuel, you're the most popular with 76%. Then comes Dustin, 71%. And is that because I have less hair? 65%. No problem. It's all good. All right. Let us tackle the last few questions here that we have got. We have got Aprup, who is asking, is it accurate quantifying of variables, the different virus loads possible? Is there a change noted in ratio with times? I think this is linked to the virus index, and he is as well asking, please share your experience at your place. Yeah, I'm using it here in my home office. I have sometimes high humidity, slightly higher temperature than what is recommended, or if I don't ventilate, then I have high CO2 levels. Usually I have my door open and do ventilation, but when I have important meetings, I close it. Or if I don't want my kids to run into my room, I have a 1-year-old baby boy and a 3.5-year-old daughter. So it's sometimes difficult to handle them. Then I have everything locked up. I even have stuff on the floor to reduce any noise. That's when my CO2 goes up. But I usually don't do that for very long. Then I basically open up doors to get fresh air coming in. Here in the Philippines, it's sometimes noisy outside. So there is this balance that you have to strike between those two things. But usually the biggest problem when I have the virus index going up here is if there's open burning in the neighborhood. That sometimes happens, it's illegal. And then, you just have to close the windows, or you got to talk with the neighbors, show them the virus index and tell them, this is not good, guys. Because before I told them and they said, oh, what's the problem? I'm just burning some leaves. But if you have data and you can show them a bad rating or a red alert sign, then it's more effective to convince people. So this is quite a powerful tool. And then Graham is asking, how do you audit air quality and for how long before you make recommendations on biophilic solutions? I think, Manuel, that goes back to you again.
Sure, I can elaborate on that. So I think we need to differentiate between two very different setups. One would be completely new office environments, workplaces, when a company moves into a new headquarter or into a new office space, or completely refurbishes the existing one. So for these kind of projects, obviously there are no there's no initial data to use, and at the same time, a company wants to have a finished, more or less a finished office on the moving date. So what we do there is based on the experience, on the historical data from other similar projects. We would then start modeling this particular office environment, and look at all the different variables, as I mentioned, number of workplaces, the building characteristics, etc. And then based on these assumptions, we would then create a design, which through the monitoring, and since we then offer the whole plants and maintenance aspect as well, we could update the greenery over time to really find this sweet spot. If we have now an existing office space, usually it depends on the dynamic in this space. If it's a very dynamic space, we need a bit more data to get to the basis. But usually, I would say around 3 to 4 weeks would be enough to get a first good impression.
All right, good. And the final question again for Manuel. Interesting idea. Would Manuel have any thoughts on the use of algae-based bioreactors to oxygenate indoor settings?
I heard about it. I have to admit, I'm not an expert in that regard, but I'm happy to continue this conversation outside of this event now.
So, Paul, hopefully you clicked earlier that you want to get in touch with Manuel. Otherwise, please find him or get his email from the slides or from the recording. Lilette has already confirmed at the beginning that a recording will be made available, so she will be in touch with you guys. She as well shared the uHoo virus index link. I'll share it again on there in the chat box now. And we've had some nice comments here. Elmar says, great webinar, very informative, thanks. Thank you, Elmar. Elmar is doing great work in the Philippines and has got a lot of great case studies as well on how he has used the virus index in helping local businesses to improve, sometimes with very simple, low-cost solutions. I think that's been one of the biggest eye-opener today. We had great case studies, both from Manuel in Switzerland, from Dustin internationally, where companies had 15 times the return, or Manuel, this crazy 84% reduction in electricity bill. I mean, that's mind-blowing, right? And sometimes there are so many low-hanging fruits, but companies don't see it because they don't start measuring and understanding what is their current situation. So that is really the starting point that is highly recommended. Get yourself a uHoo device, start monitoring, start measuring, and then start going on the journey of continual improvement with great returns for human health, for your bottom line, and for the planet. 3 in 1. That's a good proposition, right? Yes, Dwayne, I think Lilette will make available the presentations to you guys. And thanks everybody for joining. Thanks Graham as well from the UK being part of it. It was great to have the whole world being present today. And we still have a lot, most of the people that were there at the beginning with us, even though we overstretched 10 minutes. That shows how much people enjoyed the information. Avril Kumar as well says, Nice to be part of this very informative session. Dwayne says, thank you, much was learned. That's excellent. We really appreciate, guys, that you have such wonderful feedback that motivates us to do more. There will be the next uHoo hosted webinar, I think on the 13th of January. Watch your inbox. You will get an alert. Yeah, Lilette is already saying that 13th of January, another exciting lineup. I will have the pleasure to host it again. We will make sure we have again a lively and interactive discussion as we had today, with a lot of learning. And yeah, Mr. Mehedi from Bangladesh, thanks all. Such a nice session. We need more of this in the future. That's great to hear. We will come up with more events in the future. Tell your friends, invite them, and looking forward to see you again in January. Wishing you a great and wonderful end of the year and a good start to the new year. And for all of those who celebrate, Merry Christmas, and see you early next year. Thanks a lot, Manuel, Dustin, Lilette, uHoo, for setting this up, and great to get so many comments. Obrigado as well to Brazil. And yes, thank you so much, everybody. See you next
Thank you,
year.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.